Welcome to today's edition of Weathering the Storms of Life with the Rangers. Rob Rains, Sally Tippett Rains here at STLSportsPage.com, also RainbowsForKids.org, continuing our series of going through Hall of Fame players on the Cardinals and asking you some trivia questions about them as we all miss baseball. Keep our fingers crossed that it'll be back soon in some form, at least sooner rather than later, as we just wait for news from the Commissioner's office about what they're going to do. So before we get to our questions, though, our day's words of wisdom from Sally.
My words of wisdom are on a sign I just took off the wall. It says, "We didn't realize we were making memories. We just knew we were having fun." And I'll bet you there's a lot of families out there stuck at home, safe at
Safe
home
at home.
with their kids who are playing games and doing whatever they can to get through this, and their kids are going to look back on it and go, "Wow, that was so much fun."
You read something on Facebook the other day about somebody like looking years into the future.
I will be using that in my Choose Happy blog this week. Yes, it was amazing because years from now they're going to say in the history books how what an awful time it was, and there are a lot of awful things going on, but there's a lot of wonderful things going on, and a lot of families having fun, and a lot of people getting together, and technology, a lot of great quiz shows out there that people are doing like ours. But there's a lot of good if you choose happy.
And Lou Brock is our subject of today's questions. And speaking of making memories, you did that and pulled that up from the basement here, that little thing that you got autographed as a kid years and years ago.
The show and tell thing today is actually from my house.
Yep.
And it was autograph day at the Cardinals. I went with my friend Maxine Carlisle, and we went down there and we got to get all these autographs. And it's so fun to look at this.
Lou Brock's right
Lou
there.
Brock is right there. Bob Gibson, Tim McCarver. A lot of you people that are my age from St. Louis or Cardinals fans, you will remember the days when you actually got to go down there on camera day or autograph
Ted
day.
Sizemore, Ted
Simmons,
Jose
Cruz.
What I-
So it was pretty cool.
What I want to know is, did you eat the popcorn that was in the container?
Well, you know I don't like popcorn,
I know, that's
but
why
I
I'm
had
asking.
to get this thing so,
So
we
what
could
did you do
get
with
them
the
signed.
popcorn? Just
Well,
dump
you
it
went
out, or
before
did
the
you actually
game,
eat it?
so I don't know where. I don't
Well,
know.
they had to have
maybe
popcorn in
maybe
it,
it
though.
was like maybe they handed them to you. I'm not really sure. That's
That's the memory.
Charge.
That's the memory you don't remember.
Yes.
That's why they
But
ate the
anyway, it was
popcorn.
awesome. That team was great back then. Those teams were great, and Jack Buck in the background of your barbecuing, and
Absolutely.
let's do the
We'll
Lou
get back
Brock.
to those days one of these days. All right, Lou Brock, on and up. If you can either jot down your answers on a piece of paper or just play along, and we'll give you the answers once we finish the questions. Lou Brock signed as a Cub with the Chicago Cubs, an amateur free agent, 1960, after starring at Southern University. Who was the former Negro League legend who was a scout for the Cubs who signed Brock to his first pro contract? The Negro League legend who signed Brock to his first contract with the Cubs.
Question 2. Starting in 1966, Brock led the National League in stolen bases in 8 of the next 9 seasons through 1974. The only year in that stretch that he did not lead the league was in 1970. Who won the stolen base title that year in 1970?
Question 3. While most of Brock's success in the majors came in the form of stealing bases, he also did something for the Cubs in a game in the Polo Grounds in 1962 that only 3 players in Major League history also accomplished. What was that feat? Playing for the Cubs in 1962 at a game at the Polo Grounds, so obviously it's not something to do with stolen bases, something else. Only 3 other players in Major League history did. What was that?
For all of Brock's stolen base accomplishment, he does not hold the Cardinals' record for most stolen bases in one game. Another player set that record in 1982 with 5 steals in a game against the Giants. Who was it?
Okay. Who holds the Cardinal record? 5 stolen bases in one game, 1982. Question 5. Brock stole 938 bases in his career. How many times did he steal home? How many stolen steals of home are included in that career total of 938 stolen bases?
Question 6. Lou Brock was at his best in his 3 World Series appearances with the Cardinals, posting a combined .391 average. In franchise history, he is tied with what other player for the most career World Series home runs, with 4?
Speaking of his World Series accomplishments, this is question 7. Brock also has the most career RBIs in the Fall Classic in franchise history with 13. Who ranks second with 12? Who is second to Lou Brock in most career RBIs during the World Series? A collective number, all the World Series appearances added together, not just a single World Series.
Question 8. Brock has the most hits, total bases, doubles, stolen bases, and runs in the Cardinals' World Series history, yet he ranks second in career triples. Who's the only player with more triples in the World Series for the Cardinals than Brock?
Kind of an unusual statistic with
Yeah.
Brock's obviously speed. You would think he would be the leader in triples, but he's not. Kind of a surprise answer to that question. Question 9. Who was the pitcher when Brock recorded his 3,000th career hit, August 13, 1979, in a game against the Cubs at Busch Stadium? Who was the pitcher of the Cubs when Brock got career hit number 3,000, August 13, 1979?
And the last question for today. In Brock's record setting season in 1974, when he set the National League record with 118 stolen bases, he finished second in the MVP voting to what player on the Dodgers?
Mm-hmm. Very disappointing that he did not win that award. Kind of like when Ozzie Smith finished second to Andre Dawson in 1987. So even though the Dodgers did win in 74, I think a lot of people thought Brock should have been the MVP. All right, on to
It's
the
great looking at all these Lou Brock memories and thinking about
Yeah.
Lou Brock this week because he is one of those players too that's always been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He's done a lot in the community.
He and his wife Jackie, very active.
Jackie,
and
great
everything.
lady.
Yeah. And Brock's been through some health challenges lately, but our hope is that he's doing better and doing
We wish
fine.
him well and
Yeah.
hope he's staying safe like the rest of you.
Absolutely.
But he's done a lot for charities in
Yes.
St. Louis, and you always would see his smiling face at the ballpark in his red
Yeah.
jacket.
Yep, I always love to see Lou. So, all right, on to the answers. Lou Brock was signed by what Negro League legend who was scouting for the Cubs? It is Buck O'Neil. Obviously, he had a famous book came out a few years ago about his life and his adventures in the Negro League. So that was the scout who signed Lou Brock.
All right, you go ahead with this.
Question 2, the answer: Who led the stolen league in stolen bases in 1970? The only year that Brock did not lead the league in stolen bases over that stretch was Bobby Tolan, former Cardinal outfielder who'd been traded to the Reds. He had 57 steals that year. Brock was second in the league with 51.
Question 3. While most of Brock's success in the majors came in the form of stealing bases, he also did something for the Cubs in a game at the Polo Grounds in 1962 that only 3 players did in Major League history. What was it? He hit a home run over the center field wall, which was 483 feet from home plate.
800 feet
483.
would be a
That would
long
be very
home run.
long.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that was interesting that he was able to do that. He actually said afterwards he didn't realize that it would have been that rare of a feat, but it had only had Babe Ruth did it once, and there was I think Hank Aaron did it, and I forget who the third player was who did it. So, question 4. For all of Brock's stolen base accomplishments, the one record he doesn't hold, most stolen bases in one game with 5, that was actually set by Lonnie Smith in a game against the Giants in 1982. And Brock had 4 steals in a game 3 times in his career, and only in one of those games he was thrown out, also trying to steal once, so he had a chance of getting 5 steals in a game, but missed it. Just for comparison's sake, Vince Coleman had 8 games with 4 stolen bases.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Lonnie Smith was the answer.
Yeah, I was too when I looked it up. Didn't remember that.
Question 5. Brock stole 938 bases in his career. How many times did he steal home?
Twice. Once with the Cubs in 1964, once with the Cardinals in 1970, and both of those times were on the front end of a double steal.
I remember, I hope I get this right, but I remember in a rain delay at maybe St. Petersburg, Florida, at spring training, and I got, stuck huddled under an overhang with somebody, and I looked down at this beautiful lady, and her ring was just full of diamonds, and it had that number on it at 938. And I was like, that has to be Lou Brock. So I struck up a conversation with Jackie, and that's how I met her. And
That's a great story.
She had a beautiful ring.
Yeah, absolutely. Brock was at his best in the World Series. Who was he tied with for 4 career home runs, the most in franchise history in the World Series? That would be Albert Pujols, who of course had 3 of his homers in one game in Texas.
And speaking of his World Series performance, Brock also has the most career RBIs in the Fall Classic in franchise history with 13. Who ranks second with 12, and that's Yadier Molina.
Brock has the most hits and a bunch of other statistics, all-time franchise leader in World Series history, but he does not lead in career triples. That would be a surprise. Catcher Tim McCarver with 3.
That is surprising.
One more that Brock hit 2. Yes.
Question 9. Who was the pitcher when Brock recorded his 3,000th career hit August 13th, 1979 in the game against the Cubs at Busch Stadium?
Dennis Lamp hit a line drive off Lamp's leg, beat it out for an infield hit. And question 10, the final question, Brock's record-setting season in 1974 when he set the NL record of 118 stolen bases, yet he finished second in the MVP voting to Steve Garvey of the Dodgers first baseman. Very good player, but everybody I think in St. Louis especially thought that Lou Brock should have been the MVP. That's today's quiz. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with another edition here tomorrow on STLSportsPage.com, also rainbowsforkids.org.